Welcome in, everyone, to the Sports Outlet Show. I am joined alongside your host, Joe Wagner and Braden Wilkins. And a little secret, we might have someone else joining us here in a little bit, but we'll get to that. We are officially less than 48 hours from kickoff, and I know I am pumped. I know these guys are pumped. Don't know about y'all, but I plan on having my DraftKings bets going, maybe some underdog and prize picks lines. And then, of course, fantasy football, which is one of the single greatest things in life. But anyway, today we are kicking off the NFL segment. We will do a deep dive into every team in the AFC tonight. And tomorrow night, we will be kicking it over to the NFC. So make sure to stay tuned in for that one. But Joe and Braden, how are we doing?
Braden, take it away here, bud.
Oh, I'm so excited. You can feel it in the air that the NFL is coming. We came off our first full week of college football, and that was electric. And we're getting into the heart of it now with the NFL starting, and I'm just giddy. I can't wait.
Yeah, speaking of some college football electricity, go Hokies, baby, 1-0. Been a whole year since we can say that. But you know, gotta know. I posted a tweet. I think it was 2 days ago that said, you know, how can you retweet this twice? Hashtag go Hokies, hashtag Boomer Sooner. And someone commented on it. It was like, you have to show where your loyalty lies. So that begs the question, do you support the team you work for, or that you know is going to win football games? Or do you root for your alma mater who probably won't win as many football games, but it might just mean a little more? I'm not going to answer that live here today, as well as the fact that Brent, I have zero bets out there this year, but go kill the sports books for me this year, buddy.
Well, I mean, with your job, I'm sure there's some rules against that. But I know if you would, you probably would, or if you could, you probably would. I'm sure Braden and I will have some lines out there. I can't wait to have the Mega Goat Super Parlay going for week 1. I'm really pumped for that. So I'm really excited to get into some NFL content here.
I'm super pumped. Brent, should we just dive right on in, or is there anything else we need to cover?
Oh, I think we could just dive right in. Just us three.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool. So the Buffalo Bills. Are we not just going right in?
I guess we should introduce our special guest.
Okay.
My brother, Carson Allegra. Welcome into the podcast.
Wow, you're making me guys not even want to be here. Come on. Might as well leave now while we're ahead. No, I'm super pumped for this NFL season.
Super pumped. Carson came into our fantasy football league year 1 and was like, hey, this trophy's mine. So we'll have to see it. Was it year 2?
I think it was year 2.
Okay. I know a lot of people come in year 1 and just take it from me. It's very disrespectful. Not Braden. Not Braden.
Yeah. Not quite.
Braden.
No.
Well, yeah, what Brent said, welcome Carson back. This is his second appearance, but full first one, so we're excited to have him on here. Sneak peek, he might be back here tomorrow night. So, new Sports Outlet Show with the better Broncos personnel? I don't know. He's probably got more info than anyone else we could ever think of.
Probably.
Anyways, we're going to roll straight through here, guys. We got the AFC East, AFC North, AFC South, AFC West. We're just going to crank through all 16 of these teams. I know it's a little late there on the East Coast. Don't worry, this isn't going to take long. It's the NFL, baby. We didn't have to do much prep for this. We bleed this. We love this. It is professional football starting in like 46 and a half hours. I'm pumped. I'm ready to rock and roll. And I don't think a better team to speak about the volume of the NFL than the Bills Mafia, Buffalo Bills, here to kick off. So we're going to kind of go through, just give you guys an in-depth here, talk about last year's record. Is there a quarterback battle? Maybe some newcomers on this team, talking about some rookies. Coach's hot seat, new coach, astonished head coach. We'll be talking through and going through all of those as well. In-depth analysis of some of these teams and most valuable players. Obviously, there are some key names that you can throw there up on the board that's a round one pick. We're not going to do all that today. We got a couple key sleepers in there as well. So some back 10 rounds 10 through 15 to keep your eye on in your fantasy drafts too. And how can this team win the division at the end of the day? What's the key to the success? Obviously, not every team's going up there being a Super Bowl team. Cardinals, but how can the team make the playoffs is what we're going to base it off right here today. So we're going to start with the Buffalo Bills, obviously being first in the AFC East last season. Again, it used to be all New England territory, but Sean McDermott and this crew was taking over. 13-3, only playing 16 of those 17 games last season. You'll see that here twice today. Sean McDermott, again, astonished head coach, former defensive coordinator of the Carolina Panthers. Ever since he left the Ron Rivera Super Bowl team, he's been 62-35, had an astounding career over there in Buffalo at Orchard Park. 4-5 in the postseason. There is some need for improvement there in Buffalo. Farthest he's gotten is the AFC Championship, where they lost in 2020 against the Kansas City Chiefs. You'll be hearing the Kansas City Chiefs a lot today in this AFC segment about wins and losses there in championships, divisionals, and wild card rounds. My guy to watch here for the Bills this season is actually going to be their running back, James Cook, the former Dog. I think the offensive scheme for the Buffalo Bills is tight set all the way from quarterback to wide receiver between Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. It's a great 1-2 punch, and I love the addition of Utah rookie Dalton Kincaid into this offense for a 1-2 scheme for tight end that the Buffalo Bills have never used before, but Sean McDermott, although a defensive coordinator, was learning from offensive coordinator in Carolina when Greg Olsen was a huge integral part of that tight end squad. So something different to see, especially going to help him run through the tackles and have some more room on the HB toss with a tight end kicking out on the other line. So definitely something to look for. My key for them to kind of win this division, play Buffalo Bills football. Play simple, play fast, play with Josh Allen. This division is getting a little tougher. We're going to talk about the Patriots, the Jets, and the Dolphins as well. 3 competitors that are on the rise, especially with a couple of those teams. A former playoff opponent and the Dolphins from last season. But if you play Buffalo Bills football, this is their division to lose, in my opinion. I don't see a way they don't come back here in the AFC East. I think it's going to be difficult for a team to take over with how much is changing, how much injuries in some of the field, and the fact that the Patriots picked the wrong quarterback of the 3 that they had on their roster. But I will, when we get to the Patriots, I'll speak my piece. But the Buffalo Bills, my opinion is they're going to go 13-4 this season. I think they lose in the AFC Championship to the Cincinnati Bengals, who we'll talk about a little later with Joe Burr. So what was not on your guys' script tonight, you had about a 30-second relay from me earlier today, is I got some questions for you. As we're going through here, I want to hear you guys' opinions on the teams just as much as I'm going to give mine on y'all's. We're talking, you're either going to get a floor ceiling, you're going to get a over-under, or you're going to get a spread line from week 1. I think you all already heard my ceiling floor, but the Buffalo Bills over-under this season is 10.5 wins. It might be 11.5. I do have to double-check that. So let's set it at 11 for now. We'll start with the guest, Carson. Is 11 wins, is that too many, or do you think this is a slam dunk lock?
I don't think it's a slam dunk lock, but I think they will reach that. I have them going 12-5 on my prediction.
12-5? Brent, what do you got?
I think personally that's a smash, whether it's 10 or 11. I think they'll far and exceed that. I could see this team. My prediction is 13 wins, but I could see them getting as high as 14, maybe even 15. I think they're that good. It's just it comes down to the playoffs, like you mentioned. And I don't know. I think it might be the Bills' year. I think they could win the Super Bowl this year.
I feel like we've been saying that the past 4 years.
That's true. I'm in agreement here. I think 10.5, even 11.5 wins is a pretty good line. I think 10 wins is pretty difficult in the NFL, especially in the AFC this year. But I do think that it's closer to their floor than it is to their ceiling. I also have them winning 13 games, so I think they're soaring over this as well.
Very nice. With that, we'll kick it over to you, Brent. We have the former number 7 seed.
Yeah, so the Miami Dolphins, they had a very wild ride last year, to say the least. It was week 2 when they were down by 3 touchdowns against the Ravens, but Tua, Jalen Waddle, and Tyreek Hill stirred from behind and pulled out the win in the fourth quarter. It was an electric game, one of the most electric games of the season. But that same season, Tua struggled with concussions, including a really, really gruesome one on a Thursday night football game against the Bengals, in which NFL fans questioned whether or not he should have even played, given the head injury he sustained in the prior week. Even with the ups and downs, this team was still able to put up a 9-8 record and made the playoffs, giving Miami fans some hope if everyone can stay healthy this year. But speaking of that health, the biggest move the Dolphins made this offseason was trading for Jalen Ramsey from the Rams for tight end Hunter Long and a third-round pick. Unfortunately, he sustained a meniscus injury where he probably won't be back on the field for what looks to be maybe the first half of the season, maybe longer. I don't know if there's an official timetable out there for that. I know he wants to be back sooner than is probably advice from his doctors, but we'll see how that goes. Some other moves they had, though, they brought in David Long, who has shown flashes as a good coverage linebacker. They obviously signed the GOAT, Mike White, as a backup option in case Tua were to go down again. And they drafted speedster running back Devon Achane from Texas A&M in the 3rd round. One of my personal favorite picks of the draft. I think he has a solid shot of being a big part of this offense with the current state of the running back room. But the keys to this team come from, again, Tua staying healthy, Tyreek Hill proving to be a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL once again, Jalen Waddle being one of the best second options in the game. And then on the defensive side of the ball, even without Jalen Ramsey, they still have Christian Wilkins, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, and Xavier Howard, just to name a few. I believe this team will find themselves back in the playoffs, and I think they'll make a lot of noise this year in a crowded conference. My prediction is 11-6 and getting the top wildcard spot in the AFC.
Taking the 5 seed, that's a 2-stepper.
Yep.
Yeah, the Dolphins, the backfield is always questioning to me. From a fantasy football perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So week 1, I'm super excited to see how I believe Raheem Mostert is going to take over in that starting role that we were talking about at running back. But if you look at their week 1 matchup and know this time's not wrong. Okay, just want you to know it's not wrong before I put it up here. The Dolphins are 3-point underdogs. Braden, we'll start with you this time. What do you think about this line against LA in SoFi?
Well, I think these two teams are very interesting this year. I think they're teams that have a lot of talent, and I think they're teams that are going to face the wrath of a tough AFC conference. I think this game is going to be a really good one to kick off the season. I do see the Dolphins coming out and winning this game outright, but I think it's going to be a tough season for them. I think they have so much talent, but I think the AFC is going to bear them down. Their schedule is really difficult. I have them going 9-8 and just missing out on the playoffs.
Carson, what about you? You've got $1,000 on this game. Where's it going?
It's going to the Dolphins. I mean, this game is just going to be from star-studded player to star-studded player. Both these teams, their weapons are insane. Tyreek Hill on one side, you got Mike Williams on the other side, completely different receivers. And I think Tyreek Hill is going to go off in this game because that Chargers secondary is extremely, extremely suspicious. I do have the Dolphins winning that game, and I also have the same as Brent. I have them going 11-6 and getting the 5th seed in the playoffs.
You talk about offensive explosiveness, and you have two. One's named Tyreek Hill, one's named Jalen Waddle. So, You got Quentin Johnson on the other end. I hear TCU is good at football.
Oh,
Maybe last year.
don't tell that to
Yikes.
Colorado.
We'll get to that. Hey, we'll get to the number 22 team in the country, by the way. Huge AP poll, by the way. Check it out if you haven't already. We'll roll over here to the New England Patriots. The bozos.
The Patriots went 8-9 last year and were third in the AFC East. They were actually only one play away from making the playoffs, and it was the play in the Raiders game where Jacoby Myers made the stupid decision to pitch it all the way back to Mac Jones, of all people.
I agree. I like him.
I don't see much hope for the Patriots this year again. They signed Ezekiel Elliott. He's not going to do much. He was terrible in the Cowboys offense. I think they should have just went with Ramondre, but Belichick is always known for those running back by committees. They also went out and signed Juju Smith-Schuster, again, a washed player who's probably not going to make that big of an impact. The big thing that they did this offseason was cutting Bailey Zappi and Malik Cunningham and keeping Mac Jones as their only quarterback. But they then went and traded for Matt Corral, which I think Zappi and Cunningham are both better than him. He hasn't got the shot yet, but I think they're both better than him.
I can respect that.
They both did sign back to the practice squad. Hopefully one of them gets the starting job eventually this year, or else the team's going to be a dumpster fire. My breakout player for this team is Josh Uche, because he quietly had 11.5 sacks last year, and no one talked about him.
I didn't know that. So I know that went under the radar.
Yeah. I think
Did you say 11.5?
11.5 sacks last year.
I'm part of that problem.
When I looked at it, I was like, who is this guy? I guess Matthew Judon's taken so much of the double team pressure away. It's just leaving a wide open hole on that other side for him. But I don't see a way for this team to win the division, honestly. They would have to – Mac Jones or one of the quarterbacks on their roster would have to take a big step forward for them to do that. And both the running backs would have to go off because their receiver room is not very deep at all. I have them going 5-12 and missing the playoffs.
Whew.
Yeah.
Brent, you want to unpack that a little bit before I give something out, or you want to jump into it?
Yeah. I mean, I can respect the 5-12. Their offense, especially on paper, does not look too good. Their defense is pretty good still. And Bill Belichick, obviously, one of the greatest coaches to ever do it. So I think they will pull some wins in unexpected places. They'll probably get some upsets throughout the season. I don't think that's going to be good enough to make the playoffs. As we'll go through these teams here, a common theme I've been noticing with how stout the AFC is, I think teams are going to have to get at least 11 wins to make the playoffs, unless you're a division winner. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But if you're going to be a wild card team, I think you need at least 11 wins. I don't see that from the Patriots this year. I think they can get back to 8-9, maybe 9-8, but I don't think it's going to be good enough to make the playoffs.
I didn't even go into the addition of Christian Gonzalez. I think he could win Defensive Rookie of the Year this year, and he fell down the boards. I don't know how he fell so far to the Patriots, but I think he's going to be really good, but I just don't think it'll be enough for him.
Well, Brent, you kind of hinted on it here, but I wanted to talk about the ceiling versus floor of this Patriots squad. Were you saying about 8-9 is that ceiling there for Bill Belichick's squad?
Yeah, I'm saying I think the ceiling for the Patriots is 9 wins this year. I think their floor, I wouldn't put it quite as low as Carson did with the 5 wins. I'd probably have it more around 7, maybe 6. I think that's a respectable ceiling versus floor there.
Yeah, I have a I'm with Carson. I have them going 5-12, but I do think that is their floor. I think that's as low as they're going to go. But I do think they reached that floor because they just don't have the talent, as Carson said. I can see that that ceiling being the 8-win range around there as well. So I think they have a small range of what they can do this season, and it's going to be around under 500. And I don't think they're going to top 500 this year at all.
Yeah, well, for me, I actually took a different approach to the floor ceiling method. It's really this question: to zap or not to zap? It's that simple. It's that simple. Is the Western Kentucky guy getting a chance? That's the question. He's on the practice squad. All right. For whatever reason, was not picked up by another team. So I have bones to pick with 32 NFL teams, including the Panthers now. Geez, keeping Bryce Young over this guy. What are we doing? What are we doing? In all seriousness, you've always known that I very much dislike Mac Jones. I think he's a system QB in a system the Patriots do not have because they're still running Tom Brady offense, and this dude could be working at a Pizza Hut. But in my opinion, I'm kind of on the edge there with you guys. I think at best with Mac Jones at quarterback is going to be an 8-9 season. You know what? I'll give him an 8-1. It's Bill Belichick. We'll give him a tie somewhere in there, probably against the Jets. But in my opinion, that floor is also 5-12. Bill Belichick does know how to get things done. And Brent, I can also attest to you speaking on the defense. He always has one roll out there every year because that's why Tom Brady won 2 of his Super Bowls. So,
Yeah, it's true.
But anyways, it's like you guys know how like stoplights work with like red, yellow, green. You know driving. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Well, it's time to go to the next team when our names change colors. So, Braden, tell me about this show called Hard Knocks.
Yeah, the Jets Hard Knocks this year. I haven't been keeping up with it too much, unfortunately. I'm gonna have to binge it before the season starts, but I'm excited about this team. They went 7-10 last year. They were the 10 seed, missing the playoffs. Robert Salah is entering his 3rd year after, it feels weird to say, it's a promising 2022 season despite a losing record and poor quarterback play across their 3 starting quarterbacks that they had. They had Joe Flacco to start the season, Zach Wilson, and then Mike White. And it feels weird to say old man Joe Flacco did the best of the 3. But they're not going to have to worry about that this year. QB woes are expected to disappear after trading for 4-time NFL MVP Aaron Rodgers. That trade package was very interesting, and I don't know if anybody's taken a look at what those pieces were after the draft. The Jets received Aaron Rodgers and pick number 15, who ended up being outside linebacker Will McDonald, and pick number 170, which they traded to the Raiders. And the Packers received pick number 13, which they ended up selecting Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa, pick 42, which ended up being tight end Luke Musgrave, pick 207, which ended up being their new starting kicker with Mason Crosby out, Andrews Carlson, and a conditional 2nd rounder next year if Aaron Rodgers plays over 65% of the snaps, which I think he will. But quarterback wasn't the only difference in this new look Jets offense. They added a slew of receivers, including Rodgers' old buddies Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb. They added star running back Dalvin Cook as to not rush Breece Hall back and make him the workhorse too early, dealing with that injury. And that's without mentioning sophomore breakout star wide receiver Garrett Wilson preparing to enter the sophomore season. Offensive Rookie of the Year last year, he looked really, really good. The offensive line has some questions, but it also has some young, talented guys that could step up. And this defense is very strong, including stars such as Quinnen Williams, Sauce Gardner, and John Franklin Myers. They are returning, and they're adding linebacker Will McDonald out of Iowa State and former Packer safety Adrian Amos. This division, aside from the Pats, is a tough one. And in order to win this division, the Jets will have to sweep the Patriots and split the Bills and Dolphins. A vintage season from Aaron Rodgers should be good enough to get it done. I've been going 12-5, locking up the number 5 seed in the AFC.
I was about to ask him this question, but I guess that's a smash.
Yeah. I like this team a lot. I think they have a lot of stars. I think their only question really is the offensive line, and I think they're going to step up and they're going to be better. And I do think Aaron Rodgers has some more gas in him.
Wow. Whew.
Yeah.
12. 12 wins.
Yeah.
Carson, Brent, this over under at 9.5. Braden's got a heck of an opinion on it.
I will say, to be fair to Braden, I've seen hotter takes on the Jets by NFL analysts all over the place. They're saying Super Bowl. These guys are going to be Super Bowl champions everywhere. I don't believe in that. Personally, for me, I think the hype has gotten to a point where it's just I don't even know how to describe it. It's just ridiculous with how hyped these Jets are. I've watched Hard Knocks. I've seen the good plays. You can't take too much into the preseason. And yes, this roster is good, but something in my gut is just telling me that I don't know. I'm not as optimistic on the Jets as most people. My current prediction for them is 7-9-1. So I don't think they'll make the playoffs. I think they'll be last in this division. But yeah, I want to hear your guys' takes on it.
I'm not as high as on them either. Their roster is stacked from top to bottom, but I have personal bias against them because Nathaniel Hackett is their offensive coordinator. I think he is god awful. We're getting to
I didn't know we had Sean Payton on the podcast.
We'll get into the Broncos later, but I think he was Russ's downfall. I expected this over-under to be a little higher, honestly, just with how much hype they've gotten. But this is the perfect over-under for me, in my opinion, because I have them at 9-8, but I still have them missing the playoffs.
Yeah, I think this is very set dead on. I personally believe I literally think of this team as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I quite literally think Aaron Rodgers. Oh, what's its name?
Raphael.
Someone please help me. No, he's the old mentor.
Oh,
it starts with an S. Oh, I'm
Is it
losing
like
my
Spencer?
childhood. Hold on. Splinter, Master Splinter. Okay. My childhood is hurting me, and I feel so old right now. But I feel like he's Master Splinter, and then there's Raphael, there's Leonardo, there's Donatello, and there's Michelangelo. Obviously, Michelangelo is Zach Wilson. He's super goofy. He probably likes pizza. I don't really know. Leonardo's the team leader. I think that's going to end up being Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's a huge stud. I think he leads this team. Obviously, coming off Offensive Rookie of the Year. Raphael, 1,000 times hands down, is Sauce Gardner. He's the one that gets things done. He's the best skilled player at his position. But I mean, he can get a little hot headed sometimes. He puts the cheese on his head, but he gets Aaron Rodgers to come, right? And then obviously you got to finish up with Donatello. He's smart. He's intelligent. He's got quick skills. That's Breece Hall. That's how that offense shapes out. Aaron Rodgers is Master Splinter. I think they win 10 games this year. Aaron Rodgers is a great leader. And in my opinion, the Jets might have some of the best young talent in the NFL. I mean, that's not that far off considering their offensive and defensive rookies both swept the award show last year. So, but other than that, I'm excited. And I don't know. I just thought of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, maybe because the color's green up there.
I do have one question for you guys about the Jets, because I hate when people say this. Sauce Gardner or Pat Surtain? Who's better?
Pat Surtain.
He's been better. He has.
I agree.
We'll see what happens this year, but right now it's Pat Surtain.
Should I answer this?
Uh-oh.
Is this a trick question?
I think you just have. Yeah. I think you just did answer.
No, it's J.C. Horn for everybody that's wondering. Best in the business. You know, nobody better than him.
I can't even guess Horn.
Okay. In all seriousness, it is going to be. It is Pat Surtain for me, but I think Sauce Gardner has more room to develop, in my opinion. I think Pat Surtain's already like the guy. Sauce Gardner is like the guy, but if he fully just continues to rock and roll, I'm scared he's going to become somebody huge. So
I agree.
they're both going to be talked about in Darrelle Revis' eyes here in the next 10 years. I can't see where they're not. Anyways, let's transition a little bit. Oh, boy. Cleveland Browns. Obviously, the story was not on the 7-10 record last season. It was the quarterback battle between Jacoby Brissett and Deshaun Watson for the Cleveland Browns. Watson obviously suspended those first 11 games last season. I think Jacoby Brissett put him in a 4-6 spot with Watson going 3-4, 3-3. It was one of the two. Not great to cap off the season. Jacoby Brissett didn't put them in the best position, but he got them through as much as he could in the Kevin Stefanski system. Speaking of Stefanski, he's 26-24. He's made the postseason once. He's 1-1. That was in 2020 when he was actually nominated and accepted Coach of the Year in 2020. Story hasn't been too great since then for the Cleveland Browns, other than one name. In my opinion, the best pick of the draft happened in round 5. You might have seen this guy sprinting around, getting a backup spot behind this quarterback. I'm talking about DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the UCLA star who was 4th on this depth chart coming into training camp. He balled out, boys.
Absolutely. He was very exciting to watch.
Just balled out from the Hall of Fame game to every snap he played. Very impressed from the kid out of UCLA. Deshaun needs to work on his footwork and nope, I'm not finishing that sentence. He needs to get his mind right, get to playing, get back to Houston Texans form because this kid could be a young prodigy behind him, and I'm excited to watch him grow and develop. Hopefully there's some mentorship that takes place and can take a few things from his time with Watson here. But the Cleveland Browns is not about the offense. Nick Chubb's going to run for his 1,000-plus yards and 10-plus touchdowns. Amari Cooper will get as close to 100 receptions, his 1,000 yards. David Njoku will show up for half the season and be an absolute stud. It's not about the offense. The O-line has been fine. It's not about Kareem Hunt leaving the team. It's about the defense every single year for the Cleveland Browns. It's about Myles Garrett, who is looking to add just a couple more to the cemetery this year for Halloween. It's Denzel Ward looking to keep his name in the top 15 cornerback production. Took a little bit of a dip off, but he's still that guy. And it's Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Did I say it right? Probably not. Okay.
Okay.
The Joker. Oh, wait, no, that's Myles Garrett. Sorry. But needs to hold off. They need to get the ball in Deshaun Watson's hands in this offense, and they need that offense to drill that ball down the field with run after quick pass after one of the best route runners in Amari Cooper in the league. The more this offense has the ball and this defense is off the field, this defense will win championships for the Cleveland Browns. Like it's been that way since 2020. Stefanski prides himself on that front seven. I still love the Cleveland Browns defense. Again, attack early, get the ball in Nick Chubb's hand, and just let him score a couple tutties. He's the best guy he's the best last name Chubb in the NFL. Yeah, I think that's fair. For the Cleveland Browns, for me, I didn't look at their over under before this. It's at 9.5. I have them going 9-8. I think Deshaun Watson's gonna, after having a full offseason to mentally prepare, is not gonna. He's never gonna be the Houston Texan form he was with the Magic. I don't think you can ever return to that form after the things that have gone on. But I'm excited to see the Cleveland Browns in this stacked AFC North. I think they go 9-8, but like Brent said, that's not going to be enough to make the playoffs. They're going to need at least 11, heck, 10 wins possibly here, since they'll be ahead of the Steelers if they go 10-7, because they'll go 8-1. But other than that, My question for you guys on the Browns really is, I guess I kind of gave you the over-under already, so we can kind of hint on that a little bit. But how do they win this division? This division is stacked. It's the Bengals, it's the Ravens. I know it's not plausible, it's not possible, but if there was the miraculous of the Cleveland Browns, which everybody likes to usually see that story, how does it happen? Baker Mayfield's not there anymore.
I think they can shake things up. I really think they can. Yes, you have the Bengals. Yes, you have the Ravens. You have the rising Steelers, who we'll get to those teams in a minute. But the Browns still have a very good roster and probably one of the best rosters in football. And yes, there was a lot of controversy last season with the Deshaun Watson stuff, and rightfully so. I'm not condoning any of his behavior. I think it was horrible. But at a certain point, you need to get past that. And I think, like you said, Joe, with this full offseason, I think Deshaun Watson can get back to stardom. I really think – I know you said that you don't think he can get back to his Houston Texan days, but I really think that there is a possibility that he can. I think Deshaun Watson is that talented, that great of a quarterback to get back to those levels. And I personally have the Browns at 11-6 this year. I think they're going to make some noise. I think they're going to get the last spot in the AFC playoffs. I have them as the 7th seed this year.
I'm gonna take that a step further and say I'm not sure whether or not he can return to that Texans form, but I don't think he really has to. I think if he's like 75% as good as he was on those Texans teams, this team has the roster to be really good. But my one problem is that they're in this division, and I think this division is one of the most talented, one of the best in football right now. So I'm agreeing with Joe here. I'm having them go 9-8 and missing the playoffs.
I think this division is the best in football. There's so many stacked teams. Every single team in this division, their roster is just stacked with good players, top to bottom. But I don't think Deshaun Watson's going to get back to his Texans form or even really that close this year. I just don't. After this whole situation, I don't think he's in the right mindset for it. No matter how much I would like to see DTR play this season from this insane preseason he had, I don't think he will just because of how much money they gave Deshaun. But I also think Nick Chubb is going to go nuclear this season without Kareem.
I agree.
Without Kareem,
I agree.
It's going to go crazy. But I just don't see it. I don't think it's enough because the teams in this division are just too good. I also have them going 9-8 and missing the playoffs.
See, Carson made complete 98% facts, but he said the AFC North is the best division in football when we all know that's the NFC South. So, but we'll get to that tomorrow. I don't know why you guys are laughing. I don't see what's so funny here. All right, here we go. Quite literally.
Yeah, you know that color scheme. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're one of the most interesting teams to me entering this season. The offense was putrid last year. It was really hard to watch at times. Pickett didn't feel like a guy that was ready for the next level, despite some of his flashes from time to time. But on the other hand, the receiving options still looked pretty good, especially George Pickens, who made one of the best catches I've personally ever seen. And this is coming from a guy who idolized the spectacular OBJ grab in 2014. On the defensive side of the ball, TJ Watt had an injury-riddled season that cost him 7 games. And even when he was on the field, he admittedly wasn't the best version of himself. This is a guy that had 22.5 sacks in 2021. So I'm predicting quite the turnaround this season, and he will definitely be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation once again. Newcomers, Isaac Seumalo, offensive guard from the Eagles. I don't think I pronounced that right, Braden, but Keanu Neal and Patrick Peterson for the secondary, and Allen Robinson, who probably needs to consider retirement with how bad he performed last season. But the good news is, as I said, the Steelers are still pretty stout with their pass catchers. Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, and even Pat Freiermuth is a really good tight end. They also added Broderick Jones as another offensive lineman and Joey Porter Jr., who is one of my favorite corners entering the draft. Usually I don't get too into the weeds with all the offseason hype, but the Steelers' offseason was something I couldn't really seem to avoid. All of the Pittsburgh beat reporters have been talking about how much more comfortable Kenny Pickett is looking, and it showed in the preseason games. Week 1, 6 for 7, 70 yards and a touchdown. Week 2, 3 for 4, 43 yards and a touchdown against the Bills' starting defense. And week 3, he was 4 for 4 for 86 yards across 2 drives before Najee Harris and Jalen Warren stomped in for the scores. And can we just talk about how good of a head coach Mike Tomlin is for a second after I acknowledge Joe's comment, small hands, no problem. I think so. I think so.
You know what to say.
No, we're not. We're on the Steelers, not the Browns.
Back to Mike Tomlin. 16 seasons, hasn't recorded a record below 500. That is just crazy. It's absurd. He has solidified himself in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. He's one of the greatest coaches I've ever witnessed. Really, really spectacular. And with all that being said, I think the Steelers make some noise this season. I really think they do. I have them going 11-6, winning the AFC North and getting the second overall seed in the AFC. That's how much I like the Steelers this season.
Brent, I'm going to jump in here. I love how the over-under is at 9 wins. The sports books know it's Mike Tomlin. But I have also seen the hype on Twitter, on Bleacher Report, ESPN, etc. Kenny Pickett and George Pickens are going to boom this year. I went through my entire thing. I also have the Steelers at first in the AFC North. I thought I was going to get kicked out of the room for this today, but I have them at 13-4.
I like it. I think this team good.
This team got better defensively. If TJ Watt stays healthy, I love the 2-punch between Najee Harris and Jalen Warren that's going to be coming this year. 2 guys that are hungry. The OSU got I have to clarify, the Oklahoma State guy in Jalen Warren, and obviously the Alabama Crimson Tide rolling through Najee Harris. I absolutely love the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. You talked about Broderick Jones as well. That's a huge addition to that front line. If there was ever a time that I would switch my fandom from Panthers to Steelers just for joy of watching a team, this would be a year they turn that around. So this over under 9 wins for you guys that can sports bet. Take it, run with it, slam it out the door, print it on the ticket, put it on your wall, and just start tallying because they'll get it within the first 13 weeks.
Even if they get 9, it's a push.
Mm-hmm.
Which is almost guaranteed.
Yes.
I'm gonna go ahead and hop on this bandwagon too. I also thought I was gonna have a lone opinion on this, but I think the Steelers are gonna be good too. I think every year, 1 or 2 quarterbacks takes a huge step up and breaks through. Last year we had Jalen Hurts and Trevor Lawrence. The year before that we had Joe Burrow. I think that guy could easily be Kenny Pickett this year. He has some great weapons. He has a great defense. I think this team could be really, really good. I have them going 10-7 and locking up the 7 seed in the AFC playoffs.
Before the preseason, I did not like this team. But when I saw Kenny Pickett and George Pickens and all those players ball out, they got me sold. They got me sold. The one player that you guys haven't brought up yet that I think is going to do really well this year is Jalen Warren. I think even if Najee Harris gets hurt or just doesn't play well, I think Jalen Warren's going to take this starting job, and I think he's going to run with it, and he's going to keep it for a while. The plays he made in preseason were crazy, and I think he's going to carry that offense a little bit. But Kenny Pickett is also going to do really well. George Pickens is going to go off this year. I don't like George Pickens. I don't know why, but he's going to explode.
He's gonna if he puts up like Justin Jefferson numbers, I'm gonna lose my mind.
I do have them going 11-6 and getting the 3 seed in the playoffs, winning the division.
I like it. We're all on the same bandwagon.
I don't know if we've ever all been on the same page before on something, but today is that day. Today is that day. Oh, I'm gonna have some controversy here. Who's got my Ravens?
I got them.
Let's talk about Baltimore.
Last year they went 10-7. Honestly, I'm not sure how because the Broncos injured Lamar in that one game, and they didn't have him since. And
they had a Pro Bowl quarterback.
Tyler Huntley got the job done, made the Pro Bowl, and blew it in the wild card. They lost the Bengals in the wild card. I think it's going to be a similar story this year. They have a good roster on paper, but the way Lamar plays, he can't seem to stay healthy. And I again think he's going to miss some games this year. But they did add some weapons for him. They added OBJ and Zay Flowers. I don't think OBJ is going to be that good this year. I just think he's past his prime, and he tore his ACL twice now. He's not going to come back from it.
Brent, go get him. Go beat him up.
But Zay Flowers is – I think he's going to be the best rookie receiver, maybe besides Jordan Addison, but we can get to that tomorrow. I think he's going to go off this year if Lamar can stay healthy. One thing I had on here is the return of David Ajabo. His rookie season is technically this season, but it was actually last season. He only played one game. I think he's gonna be a staple for this Ravens defense, and I think he's gonna play very well. The breakout player I have for them is J.K. Dobbins. I think J.K. Dobbins can be a really good running back, and I think he's gonna. I think he's gonna lead the team in rushing yards, even though Lamar's there. I think this team can win the division if Lamar stays healthy and they run the ball as much as possible. I don't like the weapons they have there, even though they added OBJ and Zay Flowers. Mark Andrews is good, but I don't think he's going to be as good as he has been in the past years. They do have a really good O-line, but again, I don't see them beating the Steelers because they can't beat the Steelers in general, and the Steelers roster is stacked from top to bottom. I have them going 11-6 and getting the 6th seed in the playoffs and losing in the wild card to the Steelers.
Yeah, my question here, and I think this is going to have some differing views for the ceiling and floor segment. Brent, if you want to kick us off on the Ravens flock, what's the ceiling win total here, and what is the Lamar has to take a lot of poops at halftime?
This is a team to me that has a high ceiling and a low floor. Like I could see it going just insanely well and insanely bad. If Lamar goes nuclear, which we all know he can, we've seen him go in MVP season. I think the ceiling could be 13, 14 wins. I'm not saying they get there, but I also think the floor could be as low as 6 or 7. Based on injuries. I mean, you touched on that, Carson, but yeah, I'm all over the place with the Ravens. I just don't know what to think.
Brent, I think you said that perfectly. I'm in that exact same range. I do have them with the same record as Carson at 11-6 and 6th seed. But yeah, I think there's a lot that can go wrong, and there's a lot that can go right for the Ravens this year.
Yeah, I'm on that really similar boat. I think that you should avoid all Ravens wide receivers in fantasy football this season. That is my personal opinion. I had the Ravens going at 7-10. I think their ceiling is at 12-5. So I agree, Carson. I know you're at 11-6, but I agree with you boys that the Ravens might have one of the biggest fluctuating ceiling floors in the NFL this season. But in my opinion, that their ceiling's at 12-5. I think their floor is as low as 4-13. That's very low, but that's considering this team has injury bugs everywhere. The running back room speaks for itself. Lamar's new contract helps a lot. There was obviously controversy on the offseason about him getting paid, especially when you have an all-pro quarterback already there in Huntley. But in all seriousness, Mark Andrews went down last season. J.K. Dobbins went down for back-to-back years. Gus Edwards was struggling a little bit. And there's not a true wide receiver that I would want to even put my flex on this team. So a lot to work with, but if they run for 250 yards a game, I mean, they run for 250 yards a game, but they're going to have to play Army-Navy style football to do some work here, in my opinion.
Hey, this team definitely has the best tight end room in the league, though. Isaiah Likely is no joke. He is a great backup tight end.
Yeah, that's true.
How many points do you need out of him?
2.
The answer is likely 80. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It was like always that meme with like, how many beers are you going to drink on Thursday night for like the first game? And it says likely 80.
I love it.
I just think that one's funny. I like that.
You know what I love more than that?
What?
This team that I'm about to talk about.
What team would that be?
The Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh.
Like Carson mentioned before, I think this is the best division in football. Last year they went 10-7. Sorry, that's the wrong team. They went 12-4. They had that one game canceled against the Bills, unfortunately. They were the number 3 seed in the AFC. The starting 22 is mostly the same as it was last year. There's a couple guys that are missing. Head coach Zach Taylor has gotten his Bengals team to a Super Bowl 2 years ago and just a 3-point loss against the Super Bowl winning Chiefs in the AFC Championship game last year. So in the past 2 years, Zach Taylor has 2 AFC Championship game appearances and almost 2 Super Bowl appearances. Former LSU teammates Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase have a lot to do with that. They've been lighting up the field and lighting up defenses in their careers together. The defensive side might miss Jesse Bates. He's an elite safety. They brought in Nick Scott. He's a former Ram. He's been decent over his career, but he's definitely not elite. They will rely on star edge rusher Trey Hendrickson to put pressure on the quarterback to alleviate that secondary. I like this team a lot, so much so that this team is actually going to be my Super Bowl favorite coming into this year. But even winning the division won't be a cakewalk. They don't have a easy schedule outside the division either. This team needs to continue to be multifaceted, using Joe Mixon in the run game to open up the star receivers and give Joe Burrow some time in the passing game. They should allow the offense to soar and give them a strong chance against even the toughest of AFC opponents. I have them going 13-4, the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Yeah, for the Cincinnati Bengals, I have them at 12-4, just underneath the Steelers, obviously taking the 5 seed. But they're gonna roll through this playoffs. I mean, it's Joe Shiesty and Justin Jefferson.
Exactly.
Justin Jefferson, guys. No, I'm just kidding. It's that other LSU receiver, Jamar Chase, I think is his name. But I mean, other than a question mark at tight end, this team is sound everywhere. That's all I got. They're going to be phenomenal.
Like you said earlier, you think you have the Bills in the AFC Championship game against this team. That's what I had too. I think that would be an amazing game and an amazing AFC Championship game.
I don't see the Bengals doing as well as they have in years past. I have them going 10-7, just into the playoffs, beating out 2 other teams that we'll talk about later. But I for some reason don't like this team very much. The other teams in this division just make me more excited. The Ravens and Steelers, both I think I don't know if they have better rosters, but I think they have better coaching. I think Samaje Perine is actually going to be a big loss for them because Joe Mixon, while he's not in legal trouble yet and hasn't gotten suspended yet, right?
No, I don't think he will this year.
I think something could come up where he does get suspended, and then who do they have? Chris Evans? Like, their running game would be in trouble. But I see them making the playoffs, but I don't see them doing much damage this year.
I think Braden watched me lit up when you asked who they had.
Yeah, I'll let you talk about him.
He's a running back from Illinois. His name is Chase Brown, and the world will get to know it. That's all my comment. For time purposes, that is all I have at this time. You just heard it here first.
Just clip it. We'll come back to it.
Go back last year when we were talking about Illinois in the Big Ten. You'll learn who he is. It took me about 30 minutes, and I said he was going to win the Heisman. He should have. He was snubbed. Who's Caleb Williams? Snubbed. Everybody go with the Bengals?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. It's going to be just a terrible. They got Evan McMoney, but other than that, what do they really have? Oh, it went blue. I really am going to speed through this because I hate this team. Tennessee Titans, I feel like Brent gave me this team on purpose. So, hey, I can throw play with you. This is wonderful. Second in the AFC South, going 7-10. We'll speak about the number one team. Carson will hear shortly. 7-10. They missed the playoffs for the first time since 2018 last season under head coach Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel, don't get me wrong, one of the greatest head coaches to his players I think I've ever seen. If you talk about somebody that loves their team and loves their players, I'm not sure if there's anybody more than him. But can we get a dang change at quarterback? Can we get something different besides Ryan Tannehill or some bum nobody that has Derrick Henry literally breaking his back for this team and carrying 40 pounds of hairspray on his cattail? Like, can we get the man some help? Don't even get me started on how trash this wide receiver core is. It is the worst in the NFL. It is the worst I've seen. And I'm a Carolina Panthers fan. I'm standing by it. I don't care that D-Hop's there. It's terrible. I would rather have Jalen Reagor and Arthego Whiteside on my team.
Wow.
I don't know about that, buddy.
I'm just kidding. And in all seriousness, besides DeAndre Hopkins, this wide receiver room is nothing. It is very bare. There's lots of room for improvement. Not a big fan. But you know who I am a big fan of? 2,000 rushing yard King Henry this season. We always talk about it. We always think about it. But if Ryan Tannehill gets pulled after this team starts 0-4, it's Malik Willis or it's Will Levis. Two guys, what did they do a lot of in college, boys? They love to run the read option. Has Derrick Henry ever ran the read option before? Could you imagine Will Levis next to Derrick Henry running a read option? I'd be terrified for my life. We got Mayo and we got the King. That's what we got. You talk about Swamp King and Tiger King. We got Mayo King. This is what we're calling Tennessee. Mike Vrabel, 2-3. He struggles in the postseason. Highest he's been was in 2019. That surprise AFC Championship game against Kansas City when they were somehow a 1 seed. One of the craziest stories for the Titans ever. Biggest news on that one is they ended Tom Brady's tenure in New England, which I remember being at an Applebee's with Brent, Braden, Chris, and Bryce for. Applebee's, guys. Make sure you get some. Again, quarterback's that major question for me. When I think about the Titans, they might have just as much of a ceiling floor as the Ravens do, in my opinion. I think at best this team goes 11-6. At worst, I think they go 5-12. The problem is they do have to play the Texans and Colts 4 times. So there are some gimme wins in there. When Anthony Richardson, C.J. Stroud, and Will Levis all play one another against Daddy Lawrence, which we'll get to. My opinion is the Titans go 8-9. Vrabel's a good leader, but I'm tired of seeing the same team every year. I love seeing Derrick Henry every year. Love him, but if the Titans had a franchise quarterback, I'd be terrified. It just has never happened.
This is true.
Thoughts on the Titans before we roll over to the Shroud?
Yeah, I'm with you, Joe. I have them going 8-9, the 11 seed in the AFC, but I think that's really pushing their abilities. That's pushing the abilities of Derrick Henry to win games by himself. So I think if they perform to the absolute best of their abilities, they're going 8-9, and I could see them doing that.
They're lucky they got D-Hop, or else that wide receiver room would have been roasted even more.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're hating on Treylon Burks.
What did he do last year?
Chigo Compo.
Okay, I love it. Hold on.
Chig.
Chig is not a wide receiver. He's not part of this discussion. We love him.
I think Treylon Burks made some highlight plays last year. I think he could be good, but not with the quarterback room that they have right now.
He did have a great 400 yards. I agree.
Maybe I'll have to start putting some mayo in my coffee, but I don't even drink coffee in general. It's disgusting. I could see Derrick Henry taking a step back this year. Running backs don't have that long of a life in the NFL, and I could see him taking a step back this year. He probably won't, because he has to face the Texans and Colts 4 times this year. But I also have them going 8-9 and missing the playoffs.
Put it away.
Pretty sure it's expired. I put it away. It's gone. I'm sorry. Anything else on the first team of this wonderful division?
I'm a little bit more optimistic than you guys. I have them at 10-7. I think they'll compete with the Jags for the division lead. I don't think they'll quite get there. I think they're going to miss out on the playoffs. Like I said, you need 11 wins to get in the playoffs in this division or in this conference. But I do like the addition of D-Hop. I think it's going to open some things up. And yeah, I think they'll be a decent team.
It's Mike Vrabel. They'll always be decent. Oh, let's talk. I'm here for this. Let's go.
All right. We got the only interesting team in this division, the only one that's going to even sniff the playoffs, in my opinion. The Jacksonville Jaguars. They started off really rough last year. Trevor Lawrence was not great. Chris was almost right about that opinion on him being a bust, but then he turned it around and started going off and won. I think he won 6 out of the last 7 of his games and ended 9-8 and made the playoffs. But they lost to the Chargers they won against the Chargers. They almost lost to the Chargers. They lost to the Chiefs in the divisional round. I don't see a way that this team doesn't win the division unless a catastrophic injury happens to Trevor Lawrence. They did add some great weapons and a great weapon to this offense, Calvin Ridley. I think he's going to go insane this year, but that receiving room is pretty stacked, so he can't go that crazy. They also added Tank Bigsby, who I think he's going to split carries evenly with Travis Etienne this year, if not get even more. He looked great in the preseason, and I think he's going to be a really good running back in the future. My breakout player for this team is Andre Sisco on their defense. He was really good last year. He's a great coverage safety. I think he's going to ball out, and I don't know what to say about him. But their O-line is also not great. They could have upgraded a little bit there. I think that's going to hold them back a bit. But again, this division is so weak. They should win this division easily. I don't have them going as crazy as some people do. I have them going 10-7 and getting the 4th seed in the playoffs.
No, I love that. That's dude, I love that the Jacksonville Jaguars are back. The inner Maurice Jones-Drew and David Garrard seasons inside of my childhood are just loving T-Law on this team. First of all, one of the greatest comebacks ever in playoff history was against the Chargers. That was awesome. Crazy game to watch where T-Law – wasn't it 4 first-half interceptions?
Yeah, it was 4.
Yeah.
4 first half
interceptions. Looking like Cade Klubnik out there. Jeez. I love this team. I love Trevor Lawrence. Love the ETN Tank combo. They got the TT. They got the TTT. Love it. Just love it. Calvin Ridley, huge addition. Definitely be betting on the Jaguars this year. He could make some real money. He really could. Let's go back here to the over under on this team for the Jaguars. Actually, no, let's do that. Let's do that. I was gonna do the week 1 line, and then I realized they play the Colts. So let's keep it interesting. They're over under. You guys actually might be a little shocked by this. It's exactly what Carson said. It's set at 10.
Yeah,
I hate lines that are even numbers.
I actually have my record prediction as 10 as well. So I probably won't be betting on that one, but I do think the Jags will be good, like you guys said. I don't have too much to add. I think Calvin Ridley will be a great addition to the offense. It'll open some things up. Like Carson said, I really like Tank Bigsby. I think he's definitely a different style of runner than Travis Etienne. So both of those guys will be used pretty heavily. I think the offense is going to be really good.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I also have them at that 10-win mark, so I think that's a really well set line. But I do think that this division is theirs to lose. If they do what they should do, they win the games they should win, they'll have this division easily. And like you guys said, Calvin Ridley has looked really, really good, really, really athletic, even though he's taken that year with his suspension. So I'm excited to see how he plays with Trevor Lawrence, and I think this team's going to be good.
If you're looking, since I am looking here at the spread, the Jaguars are -5.
They're going to
very much
that.
I very much like that. That sucks.
I also heard, I forget where I heard it from, but there was a stat about the Colts in week 1, and it's like something they've lost, like, I think they've lost like their last like 5 or 6 like week 1 games. It's some weird stat where they lose week 1.
There's some weird stuff with the Colts and Jags. The Colts and Jags have some weird history. So
they tied the one last year, right, against the Texans.
Yeah, was that week 1?
The Colts, I think it was week 1. So they've lost or tied. That's even worse than just losing. It's even worse than just losing. Well, I can't think of a better way to talk about the other team that had a tie on their record.
Yeah, these are moments when I wish Chris could join us. We've had some heated debates about the Texans over the years.
Tell me it's 5-12. That might be the greatest sports outlet show debacle ever.
Definitely up there. The Houston Texans had a pretty bad year, to say the least, going 3-13-1 and securing the 2nd overall pick in the NFL draft. With that selection, they chose to hand the reins to rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud, but probably even more shocking, they traded up to the number 3 pick right after and grabbed Will Anderson to further invest in their future. These two young guns both, respectively, have the chance to be offensive and defensive players of the year. I'm not sure it will translate to immediate team success, though. In free agency, they grabbed some NFL veterans who, in my opinion, their best days are behind them. Those guys being Dalton Schultz, Robert Woods, and Devin Singletary. But their best free agent move was probably grabbing Jimmy Ward from the Niners to pair with Derek Stingley and Jalen Petrie in their secondary. The Texans are also bringing in a new head coach in DeMeco Ryans, which in hindsight probably had a lot to do with Jimmy Ward coming over. Ryans is hoping to bring the success he had with the Niners defense over to Houston. I would go over some of the team's most valuable players, but honestly, I just named most of them in the offseason segment. If this team wants to sniff improvement, they need consistent quarterback play early and often from C.J. Stroud. Dameon Pierce needs to get a shit ton of carries. Will Anderson needs to be an immediate game wrecker, and they're going to need a whole lot of luck. I believe with this team being so young that they're going to show spurts of promise, but it's not going to be enough to have sustained success. I think they'll go 5-12 and compete with the Colts for last place in the division.
Not again.
5-12.
I can't do this the second year in a row. Or is it like 3rd at this point? It's something.
I did the playoff predictor. I was not trying to get to that number at all. It's just how the tables turned. 5-12.
So you're smashing the under because the Texans over-unders at 6.5.
Really, that high?
6.5.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd be going under.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams at 6.5, and then 1 at 4.5, and they're the lowest. And I assume
Cardinals.
we can all guess who that is.
Yeah.
The Chiefs.
It is actually the Broncos.
Yeah, with the Texans, I really like the young pieces on this defense. Derek Stingley, Jalen Petrie, Will Anderson, you all mentioned. I like those guys a lot. I think they're very, very talented. It's the offense that I'm concerned with. CJ Stroud, is he going to be any good? And he doesn't have the most amazing weapons around him other than Dameon Pierce. I'm hoping John Mechie is going to come back and be good. That would be very exciting. I think this – I don't know what you have planned, Joe, but I'm going to go ahead and throw my ceiling in for them, which would be around 8 wins. That's if that offense is really good. But I do have them going 5-12 as well as you do, Brent.
Speaking of the weapons that they have, I think Tank Dell is actually going to be very good. I think he's going to be their best receiver this season.
1,000% agree.
It looks really good. I won't say much about them. I don't think they're going to be very good. I have them just under the over-under. I have them at 6-11.
See, they lost me when they lost Davis Mills. That's all I got.
General Mills.
In all seriousness, though, I'll rebound on what Carson is saying, too. I also really like Nico Collins. I think between the two of them, and, again, Stroud and Pierce, that offense is so young. I also very much love – it's crazy that you're calling it veteran at this point. I love the addition of Dalton Schultz for that offense as well. That gives a little bit of that, again, going back to the HB toss where Dameon Pierce can use his speed. And he can put up 8 catches, 100 yards if he needs to as well. If CJ can't get it out as far out to those receivers and is only hitting Dell in the slot and Dalton Schultz on a couple out routes. So that's something I'm excited about. But the Buckeye has a lot to learn. But I think D'Amico Ryans is a great start for him. But with that, we can go from pick number 2 and 3 straight to pick number 4. Tell me about the Colts.
Yeah, 4-12-1. We mentioned one of those ties earlier. 15th seed last year. Shane Steichen is their head coach. He's a former Eagles offensive coordinator. It's his first year as the Colts head coach. He was hired shortly after the Super Bowl. I don't think much is going to be expected of him this season, especially as he's trying to develop rookie quarterback out of Florida, the freak athlete that is Anthony Richardson. He was named the Week 1 starter over Gardner Minshew in mid-August. For the sake of time, I'm not going to share all my thoughts on it. I do think it is the wrong move. I'm not an NFL coach, but I think nobody's expecting you to do much this season, and Gardner Minshew is one of the more serviceable backups in the league. And I think Anthony Richardson, from what he showed at Florida, is not fully prepared for the NFL level, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's nothing wrong with developing a freak athlete like him and allowing him to get better and more poised for the NFL. But I think they named him the starter, and that's what they're going to roll with, at least for a little while. This team has faced some distractions over the offseason with the whole Jonathan Taylor saga. The latest news being that Jonathan Taylor will miss at least 4 games being on the PUP list. I think it has potential to be more than that since he does not want to be on this team. He does not want to play for them, at least without a new paycheck. So I think he's going to milk that injury as long as he can. Not even milk it. He wants to sustain his lifeline. As we mentioned earlier, running backs have a short lifeline in the NFL, and he wants to make the most of it and not risk the injury going further than it has to. The quality of pass protection that Anthony Richardson will receive is in question amid concerns of the offensive line. The defense was one of the worst in the league last year, excluding guys like Shaquille Leonard and DeForest Buckner, and the defense will likely not be much improved. This team can win the division if Anthony Richardson proves me wrong. And to say aside, I have nothing against Anthony Richardson. I think he could be an amazing quarterback. I just think he needs time to develop. The team can win the division if Anthony Richardson proves me wrong and makes that leap right now and performs as an NFL star in year one. Jonathan Taylor would also have to return and have a new fire under him to prove himself to the Colts and to other teams in the league for this team to win this division. I actually am higher on this team than I think most would be. I have them going 7-10, the 13th seed in the AFC.
Yeah, I can jump in here as someone that loves the Florida Gators. First of all, Brent watched the whole Netflix series while I was homesick last week. It's really good. Missed a couple things, but always love seeing Tim Tebow in action. Speaking of Florida Gator quarterbacks, I have two notes. Number one is I read an article that said Kyle Trask may be the best Florida Gator quarterback ever in the NFL. That speaks volumes. Number two, Anthony Richardson was the 5th Florida Gator drafted in the first round. Let me tell you about the 4 and how they fared so far. You all know Steve Spurrier, number 3 overall pick. Career record, 13-24-1, 40 touchdowns to 60 picks. Go to 1972, John Reeves, the number 14 overall pick. Career stats, 4-13 as a starter, 17 touchdowns, 34 interceptions. You go to the number 22 overall pick, Rex Grossman, 25-22 as a starter, 56 touchdowns, 60 interceptions. Have you heard a quarterback yet that had more touchdowns than interceptions?
No.
Let's keep going. Tim Tebow, we break this. 8-6 as a starter, 17 passing touchdowns, 9 interceptions. What is going on in Florida Gator football where all these players that, first of all, we have Heisman Trophy Florida Gator winners in here, and now we're going to Anthony Richardson, who has played 14 NCAA games.
Yeah, that's it's like I said, I think Anthony Richardson has generational athleticism.
Yes.
This guy is an athlete, and he had potential to break that trend that you were talking about. But I think starting him week 1 has potential to ruin that and ruin his development track in the NFL. I just hope it doesn't end up that way. I hope he ends up being a star.
It's the definition of throwing someone into a dumpster fire.
Mm-hmm.
Quite literally.
Nobody's expecting anything from the Colts this year. I don't see why you sit him for a couple weeks and let Gardner Minshew try to win a couple games and let him develop under that NFL system.
I 1,000% agree, Braden, because the fact of the matter is if Anthony Richardson continues this tale, who already had a difficult time in college football throwing interceptions and being accurate with the ball, but when he can nuke that thing. Whew. Is he the one at his pro day that hit the ceiling?
I think so.
Is that Anthony? Okay. Yeah, that literally hit the ceiling of whatever bubble he was in. Generational talent, but the mental toll it takes on you if in week 4 he's not getting it done and Gardner Minshew takes that step up, you're already killing this kid's confidence. If he's sitting behind and getting ready to go, I think that was the one thing that Hugh Jackson did correctly in his coaching career with the Browns. Is he sidelined Baker Mayfield for those 3 to 4 weeks, and his early success could have been a testament to that.
And I said I wasn't going to say my thoughts on this for a time, but look what happened with Patrick Mahomes. He sat for almost his whole first season under Alex Smith. Granted, Alex Smith was a much better quarterback than Gardner Minshew, but still, Patrick Mahomes sat for almost a full season, and look what's happened with him.
There's been one quarterback that has gotten drafted and thrown into the system and ignited a flame, and it's Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm. And that was after an ACL tear. The first season didn't work out for him.
Carson, Brent, maybe give us some time to breathe. What do you got?
I really don't have too much to add. I mean, I kind of agree with what you guys are saying about Anthony Richardson throwing him into the fire right away. I think the Jonathan Taylor stuff is huge. He might be the best player on the team. So not having him is really, really going to suck. And I don't think he comes back after week 4. I really, at this point, I think he sits out the whole season. That's just my personal take on it. And if he's not there the whole season, the Colts are going to be in for a rude awakening.
Braden and I talked so much about Anthony Richardson, I forgot that debacle was going on. Bring back Marlon Mack.
I agree that Anthony Richardson's a super raw prospect. My take on that is it's kind of like MLB, where you get drafted in college and you sit in the minor leagues for a little bit to develop. I think that's what Anthony Richardson's to do, because his college stats, when I looked at them, I'm not too into college football, but his stats were not good. His rushing stats were, but his passing stats were pretty awful. I think he needs to sit behind Gardner Minshew for the first year, like Braden said, and develop.
He could legitimately become like Michael Vick. He is that much of a beast at running the football. So if he continues to develop and controls that arm power and just starts throwing 80-yard bombs down the field to Michael Pittman, fantasy owners are going to be very happy. I mean, it's what Justin Fields does, 3 for 3 with 180 yards and 3 touchdowns. Very, very similar gameplay, just a lot bigger. Anything else here on the AFC South as we wrap up with that into the AFC West? All right. Let's roll with the best team here in this division. The Las Vegas Raiders. Definitely some things that we could talk all day about, but I'll be rather blunt. 6-11 last season. They missed the playoffs for their 5th time in 6 seasons. Lost the wild card in 2021. That was that lone outlier there for them. Josh McDaniels is the guy back in year 2 at 6-11. Adds Jimmy Garoppolo and brings Josh Jacobs back so far this season. That's a big addition to the team, bringing him back. Looks like he was definitely going to be out the door. Same with Jonathan Taylor, who we just spoke on. My big thing for the Raiders is their triple threat. And I actually am going to get a little deeper into what I believe is the triple threat. And no, it's not Jimmy G, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, but it is Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, and Hunter Renfrow. I think you could not have 3 polar opposite wide receivers on the same roster, and I really dig that. Devontae Adams, first of all, Green Bay Packers superstar, has a great chance to take a leap here in his 2nd year with the Raiders. If it doesn't go well, I think he's out the door with Josh Jacobs as well. I know there was a little bit of talk from that this season. I mean, you talk about Aaron Rodgers possibly in his retirement tour next year. He's going to be pushing to get his boy back in New York. I mean, I would too. It's Devontae friggin' Adams. Secondly, is Jacoby Myers. You talk about a dude that rep after rep after rep, but cannot score a touchdown. It took him a very, very long time. That's not what they need out of him. They need the Darren Waller production here with him gone. They need those 100 receptions for those 600 yards. Jacoby Myers can bring that, and he can make big plays at big times. He's a tall dude. We've seen him moss receivers a couple times. One of those in the back of the end zone. That was this past season. Gross play. Look it up. Finally, you have scrappy Hunter Renfrow, the guy that continues to crawl back from the dead. Hunter Renfrow has the uphill battle of being 100 catches as well, all the way to where he could be catching 25. He loves playing in the slot. He's probably one of the fastest players on the team. He's a great punt returner when you need him. I just love how different the 3 of these receivers are. And if they can teach each other their sort of skill sets and mend those together, I think Jimmy G is going to have some fun with this offense. I think it's an island of misfits, and I definitely love it. That being said, we'll talk about their ceiling floor here in a second. I think they take a step up. They go 8-9 this season. I mean, I don't think that's too out of the ordinary for them. This team is going to go 3-3 in the division. They do every single year. They always beat the Chiefs somehow, some way, usually on primetime. I don't know what it is about the Chiefs, but they cannot beat this team in primetime ever. Maybe that was the Derek Carr effect. I don't know. 8-9. I'll jump in straight to their ceiling floor. For me, their ceiling's 11-6. I could see if Jimmy G plays in 2024 again with the wide receiver core. Defense needs some work, but I mean, if you can keep scoring, that's what the AFC West does best. Controlled offensive skill room, but if this place kind of plummets and the defense plummets, I could very much see a 5-12 season as well.
I'll jump in here. I don't like the Raiders. That's bias for me, but they somehow beat the Broncos in every single game that they play. The last 10 games that the Raiders and Broncos have played, guess what the record is? It's 10-0 for the Raiders.
Is it actually?
Yeah, we haven't beaten them in 10 straight matchups.
That's actually nuts.
I still don't think this team's going to be very good. I think the Broncos will sneak out one win against them this year, and I think that's going to be because the Broncos always play well in week 1, get my hopes up, and let me down. But I see their ceiling being about 10-7, and their floor probably being 4-13, in my opinion. They could either Jimmy G could be a serviceable quarterback like he was for the Niners, and they could maybe make the playoffs, or he could be a dumpster fire and they start Aiden O'Connell.
I wouldn't be mad about seeing that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brent.
Whoa, that was
I'm pessimistic about the Raiders, and it's not necessarily to do with the talent, especially on the offensive side of the ball, because I think the offense does have some great weapons, obviously, Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams. It's the coaching. I hate Josh McDaniels as a coach. I think he might be the worst in the NFL. He's that bad. He's a great coordinator, but for whatever reason, when he gets head coaching stints, it doesn't go well. And Carson touched on it a little bit. I think the defensive side of the ball, it sucks. Max Crosby is there, but that Chandler Jones is there too. But there's actually some controversy with him right now. I saw today where he doesn't even want to play for them. So who knows what's going to happen with that? But yeah, I'm not high on the Raiders this season.
I'm with you, Brent. And Joe, I don't blame you for being not high on them, but respecting of them, because Jimmy G is a winner and has been a winner of his career. And that offense does have some good weapons. I'm really, really not sold on the defense at all, other than Max Crosby. And like Brent said, Chandler Jones is pretty pissed off that he couldn't use the Raiders gym earlier today. So I think I'm worried about this team doing very well this season, and I think they could potentially be one of the worst teams in the league. But like you said, that offense is pretty solid, and they do have some good weapons on that offensive side of the ball.
I don't know where you guys were seeing that report about Chandler Jones. I guess I haven't been on social media enough today because I have not seen that.
I literally just saw
Dang, they cut me already?
I saw
That's
it.
the vibe I got.
I saw it like an hour before this podcast, so I'm not sure when the news dropped, but I was scrolling through X and saw it. So
Right. We should all probably get comfy, boys.
I won't take as long as I did last time. I rewatched that podcast. I took way too long. The Broncos,
He's studying film. Look at this.
The Broncos last year were an extreme disappointment. Week 1, I thought was just a fluky game for Russell Wilson. He got that long touchdown to Jared Jeudy, which was underthrown, by the way. They got my hopes up when trading for Russell Wilson, but let it all down when I thought they were going to lose to the worst team in the league, because I thought the Seahawks were going to be really bad last year. They turned out to be pretty good, but still it wasn't a loss that I was happy about. I think they will. I think Russ will turn it around this year. No matter how cringy he is and how much everyone clowns him, I think Nathaniel Hackett was the problem, as I touched on earlier. I don't like Nathaniel Hackett's schemes. That's why I don't think the Jets are going to be that good this year. We also brought in one of the best coaches of all time, Sean Payton. Sean Payton's offensive scheme is really well done. He loves to use the running backs, and Javonte's back and fully healthy now. People are dropping him in fantasy, not dropping him in fantasy. People are taking him later in fantasy because of it, because they think his injury is worse, but he's fully healthy now, and I think he's going to be good. But a big loss for them this year is Tim Patrick tearing his other ACL this year. And I don't think Tim Patrick will ever play football again. That's just my opinion. I don't think he should. because of the later health risks, but I hope he does. Russ, I already got into Russ. Jarrett Stidham is also a very viable backup if Russ doesn't. Brent made the joke earlier about what Sean Payton said. I don't know what it exactly was.
I forget I forget what it was, but I had it on my phone, but it was like he needs to stop effing kissing babies or something.
But Sean Payton's not going to put up with that. I see if Russ sucks, I see it being 5 weeks, and then they put Jarrett Stidham in if Russ is just as bad as he was last year.
Yeah.
One big problem for the Broncos last year was the offensive line. Russell Wilson was the most sacked quarterback in the league last year, and we brought in Mike McGlinchey and Ben Powers. They did not look good in the preseason, I'll be honest, so that worries me a little bit. But I'm hoping they can get it back together, and I hope the O-line will be much better than they did last year. Another injury with receivers, which is Jerry Jeudy. Some people think he's going to be out for 4 weeks, like Chris Naylor, our insider. And some people think he's going to be ready for week 1. In my opinion, I think he'll be ready for week 1. I don't think he'll play. I think he'll be back week 2, just to be safe so he's healthy for the rest of the season. My breakout player is Damari Mathis. Not sure if you guys have heard of him, but he's the Broncos' second corner, and he was really, really good last year. No one really talked about him besides that one game against the Chargers where he had 4 pass interference calls against them. I know me and Brent were in the basement watching that. It was not fun to watch, but after that, I started watching him, and he was really, really good. The last thing I'll really touch on with them is the wide receiver depth is not there. We only have 4 wide receivers rostered, and one of them is Jerry Jeudy, who might not play week 1. I do think Brandon Johnson, our third receiver, is going to ball out this year if Jeudy is injured for a decent bit of time. But we do need to probably sign someone or call up two of our guys from the practice squad. I don't really see a way the Broncos win the division, but it's possible, especially with the Travis Kelce news I heard today. I will get to the Chiefs in a second, but that gives me a little bit of hope that we might be able to beat the Chiefs this year if he's out for an extended period of time. We don't know the timetable on that yet, unless it came out. I'm not sure. But I don't see a way that they win the division, but making the playoffs is a possibility. If Russ bounces back, Sean Payton has a great rushing attack this year with Javonte and Samaje Perine. I think we could make the playoffs, but I actually don't have us making the playoffs. I have us going 10-7 and just missing it. When I was doing the playoff predictor earlier, I saw us at 10-7 and missing out. I think it was the Bengals I had over us, and I looked back at our schedule and I was just searching for a win, just seeing if I could find one in there, and I couldn't find one. So I have them at 10-7, missing the playoffs, unfortunately, and keep letting me down again.
Yeah, and if things go bad for Russ, and if Jarrett Stidham's not ready to take it to the next level, you got someone waiting in the wings. Christian Naylor.
Oh, I thought he was going to the
baby.
Benvenuti.
No. I mean, I've heard talks about Chris Naylor. He's doing good things over there in Denver. So put him out there.
He's leading us to a Super Bowl, baby. Let's go.
No, in all seriousness, though, the bar is pretty low for Russell Wilson, and I think he can easily surpass that bar that he set last season. I don't know if it's going to be a lot of wins. It's a hard conference. So I think I had them at 7-10 is what I had them at. So
yeah, the Broncos over-under is at 8.5. I think that's the most daunting line I've ever seen.
Scary.
I'm not touching that either way, so I'm not going to give an opinion, but I did have them at 8-9.
7-10. Don't have too much else to say on it.
Dang, none of us had them making the playoffs.
I mean, one team had to miss out of this division. It wasn't going to be the Raiders. I guess we should probably talk about this. Do we have to? They're so bad.
We don't got to talk about them.
Oh, yeah, Braden doesn't want to hear about it. Brent, let's talk about it.
It's a sore subject for Braden. The Kansas City Chiefs, they were the Super Bowl champions of last year, and Patty Mahomes is further solidifying himself as one of the greatest to ever do it. And if y'all want to know a little something, I think he will surpass Brady as the GOAT by the time he retires, if not within the next 5 to 10 years.
God, I hope not.
He is that good, just a generational talent. It doesn't matter what weapons he has. He always seems to get it done. They capped off their season with a 38-35 win over the Philadelphia Eagles, coming back from a 10-point deficit at the half. I still think that Kadarius Toney and James Bradbury were sent over as special agents from the Giants to ensure that this would all play out the way it was supposed to. Just kidding. But probably the biggest move that the Chiefs made this offseason was allowing Orlando Brown to walk in free agency and opting to bring in Jawan Taylor. Jawan Taylor was one of the top 15 in pass blocking grade in 2022, but he was also one of the worst in the run game. So there's no denying that Orlando Brown was probably the better option there, but they had to make some cuts to save room for that cap. They also dropped a couple of their weapons, with Juju joining the Patriots and Mecole Hardman joining the Jets. But I'm calling that more of a wash considering they signed Richie James, who is coming off a career year with the Giants, and added Rashee Rice in the second round of the draft. I'm sorry, is there an echo?
Just a smidge.
Okay, I think it's good now. All right. Also, it's worth noting that Mahomes literally makes guys like Justin Watson look good, so I really don't think it matters all too much. But what does matter is the absolute bombshell that dropped earlier today. Travis Kelce suffered a hyperextended knee, and there really isn't an official word on the severity of the injury. He could play Thursday night, or it could be something that lingers throughout the season, and things seem pretty hush right now.
Which is not good.
It's not good, but I did see about an hour ago. It's a legit injury. I personally, this is my thought on it. I don't think he'll play Thursday, but I think he will be back week 2. I think it's a short-term thing. I think he just needs to get some rest, heal up that knee, and I think he'll be back week 2 because the Chiefs need him. It's Patrick Mahomes' old reliable weapon. It's the thing you can count on week in and week out with the Chiefs. But another thing that I wanted to mention was Eric Bieniemy jumping ship and joining the Commanders as their OC. My guess is that Bieniemy no longer wanted to be associated with Mahomes or Andy Reid, considering that is what runs the well-oiled machine for the most part. I think he wants to prove that he can sustain success elsewhere and look for that next step as a potential head coaching candidate next offseason. Because if he turns this Commanders offense around, there is no reason he should not get a head coaching gig. Like it's stupid. It's stupid.
I think it's interesting. We've talked about him being a head coaching candidate for the past 2 years now, and I don't know if he had interviews and they didn't go well, or there wasn't any offers. But I'm surprised that he hasn't been able to find something yet. But I think, like you said, it's definitely one of the hardest tracks he could have chosen to take going into the season to prove himself. So I think that'll be interesting for him.
But I think it's a risk he needed to take considering teams aren't willing to hire him as the head coach. So selfishly, I hope he does bad because Commanders are in the Giants division. I'm sure you feel the same. But for his sake, hopefully it goes well. Maybe he can get a head coaching position. Looking forward to this season. They literally kick off less than 48 hours from now, and I don't think it's going to change much from prior years, assuming that Kelce will be healthy again in the next few weeks. I'm predicting their 8th straight division title for an overall record of 11-6, which will be good enough for 3rd in the AFC.
11-6. That might be like their lowest record ever. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs, they run the AFC. I think that it's pretty noticeable. Unless Joe Burrow comes to Burrowhead, they have no issues really. But Bengals and Bills are creeping up. They dominate this division year in and year out, like you said, going for their 8th straight, Brent. Was the last division win? Wouldn't that make it the Broncos for the Super Bowl?
Yep, it was. It was 2015.
That was 8 years ago.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, they
in the playoffs.
the Chiefs have the highest over/under at 11.5, tied with 2 other teams. It's the Philadelphia Eagles and the Cincinnati Bengals. I think those are all very fair. It seems like year in and year out, it's almost free money to pick the over on that. I had the Kansas City Chiefs going 13-4 this season. I said last year that the Chiefs would be the worst team in the AFC West. It was at 10-7 to be fair, but I was hype about the AFC West last season. But boy, did they disappoint!
Mm-hmm.
They always
you hear about Kirby Smart talking about how people doubted Georgia last year. I think the Chiefs can actually make that case. I don't know how common it was for people to be sleeping on Georgia, but the Chiefs did get slept on last year.
I don't think the Chiefs are going to be as good as they were last year, especially if Kelsey misses some time. I still have them getting the number 1 seed in the playoffs and going 12-5.
Yeah, it's
just how it is.
Let's just accept it, guys. Let's move. Let's just move on. It's Patrick Mahomes' life. We're actually just living in it. That's all I really got. It's actually Brittany Mahomes' world, and we're just living in it. Oh, that's a very beautiful blue. Take us home, Braden.
Yeah, last but not least, the 10-7 Chargers from last year. They were the number 5 seed. I don't think we've talked about a hot seat too much. Brandon Staley has one of the hottest seats in the NFL. He's kept the Chargers looking like the Chargers over his tenure in the first season. That's not exactly a good thing, by the way. In his first season, the Chargers missed out on the playoffs after losing a primetime game in overtime in the last week of the season against the Raiders after needing either a win or a tie to secure a playoff spot. Game was absolutely insane. The game was crazy. So they missed the playoffs that season. In his second season, the Chargers made the playoffs and took a 27-0 lead over the Jaguars in the wild card round before then blowing that lead and losing 31-30. So Staley's definitely on the hot seat, and the only thing that will save him is at least 1 playoff win this season. It might even have to be more. Star quarterback Justin Herbert has a new weapon to play with, rookie wide receiver out of TCU, Quentin Johnson. He also has old men Keenan Allen and Mike Williams returning on the outside, and Austin Eckler is a top 2 receiving back in the NFL. So there's no shortage of targets for Justin Herbert. In the secondary, a healthy J.C. Jackson and Derwin James could work wonders for this team, but those guys have struggled to stay healthy for a while now. The linebacking core of Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Eric Kendricks, and Kenneth Murray could very easily be elite if they all play to their best. Winning this division will require beating the Chiefs at least once and taking care of business against their other division rivals. They will need to find ways to not lose their games that they should win, as the Chargers always seem to do. Unfortunately, I have them going 8-9, the 10th seed this year in the AFC. That's not because I'm a Justin Herbert hater. I'm a Justin Herbert believer. I am definitely a Brandon Staley doubter, though. I think he's gone after their season, and Justin Herbert's going to be looking for a new guy to lead him.
I'll jump in here again. It's crazy that they went 10-7 last year and got the 5 seed. That just shows you how good the AFC is this year, because I have 2 10-7 teams, including the Chargers, going 10-7 and missing the playoffs. I think their offense is stacked, but that defense is just the secondary is a little concerning besides Derwin James. Maybe J.C. Jackson can take a step up from last year and get back to his Patriots form, but I just don't see it. I have the Bengals just beating them out and them missing the playoffs.
Yeah, I spoke about the Tennessee Titans and things like not changing. I feel like the Los Angeles Chargers fit that same bill just a little bit. I feel like we've been talking about Keenan Allen and Mike Williams forever. And it feels like they're getting a little older. So I love the addition of that kind of new tool in the belt there for Justin Herbert and Quentin Johnson. Just something to get a little more excited about. But I mean, it's the same thing with Gerald Everett. And there's still a question mark behind star running back Austin Eckler. Like, between the contract, between playing, it seems like you can't keep a running back tame. I don't really know. You can't put a rein on him anywhere since Le'Veon Bell broke the absolute barrier for running backs. I mean, I can't speak much more to it. The Chargers are decent year in and year out. They're always putting up a fight. I love Justin Herbert. Braden, you spoke on that linebacking core. It could be one of the best in the NFL, if not the best. If the Chargers can run the ball in all three ways, they've had so many problems on special teams over the past couple of years as well, with missed field goals and missed opportunities as well. Could that go back to the head coaching? It's possible, but
They got it's going to be okay.
That's fair. He missed a couple. He missed a couple, but he did have a really big hot streak in the middle there too. The Chargers, my ceiling for them is 10-7, and my floor is 9-8. I don't see them moving much.
That's crazy.
Brent, you got anything to cap it off?
Yeah, just pretty much echoing what you guys said. I think they do take a little bit of a step down to 9-8, mostly because of the coaching concerns, as Braden mentioned. So yeah, I don't have them in my playoff picture this year.
I think it comes down to every year the Chargers are so exciting. There's so much to be excited about. We can love all the pieces that they have, and year in and year out they disappoint. And I think it's just gotten boring. It's just gotten to the point where nobody believes in them anymore, and they need to prove people wrong.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. Well, that wraps up our AFC here, guys. Thanks for tuning in with us late here tonight. We're going to be back tomorrow. The excitement is still brewing, but instead of 48, we'll be saying 24. We'll be back here. And don't worry, as always, after we do the AFC, NFC, of course, we got the full playoff for you. They're going to be sending in their picks here from today over to me, as well as their NFC record predictions. We're going to merge them together. We're going to get some averages up in here in the Sports Outlet Show. You know I love a good Excel sheet, guys. I'll be putting that together for us, get it thrown up on the screen. We'll go straight into a Super Bowl winner, as we always do. We'll see you guys tomorrow night here at the same time. I'd let you guys say something and say goodbye, but we're going to see you tomorrow, so we'll say see you later. We're out here on the Sports Outlet Show. Appreciate Carson coming on. And you know they're brothers because they both didn't put their last names on here, and Braden and I did. So I've been thinking about that the whole podcast, so I thought I'd throw it out there at the end. But same four. We'll see you here tomorrow. Talking the NFC. Best team in football, Arizona Cardinals. We'll see you guys later. Thanks for tuning in.